Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation on missing children. Today, we have speakers from Department of Student Services who are going to give us more details on what missing children mean and what the government of Kenya is doing. So before we start, I'll just go through the features in this webinar. And for those ones who are asking, why can't I chat? You will see, let me just explain. Just give me a second. I share the features. Okay. The features in this webinars are as follows. There is you can be able to ask questions. You can be able to do in the Q&A. You can be able to raise your hand, but if you have any questions, and you'll be allowed to speak. For now, I'm handing over this meeting to Madam Goretti to take over. Thank you so much, and welcome, Madam Goretti.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Good morning, all. Welcome to the International Missing Children's Day commemoration for 2021. We are happy to host you. And just to bring the highlights of this day, it is a very important day for us in the children's sector. And this day is commemorated every 25th of May, and it has forget-me-not flower as its emblem. During this day, a lot of awareness is created on children who have gone missing. There's usually a massive worldwide campaign where participants are encouraged to share images of those children who are still missing on all forms of social media, as well as celebrate stories of children who have been found. We know it is very difficult to have your child missing. So it is also important that we encourage parents who are still missing their children and providing psychosocial support to them. The general objective of this day celebration for this year is to encourage everyone to think about children who remain missing, spread a message of hope, and create awareness on prevention strategies so that our children do not go missing. And when they are lost or abducted, there are strategies on how to get them back. In the background is that this day started being celebrated in 2001 in remembrance of a child who had gone missing on 25th May 1979 in New York. In Kenya, the first commemoration of the International Day for Missing Children was in 2019. We celebrated this at Nairobi Children's Remand Home with the theme, Bring Our Children Back Home. The event involved children officers at the sub-county level, representatives of children and managers of charitable children institutions and statutory children's institutions. In 2020, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we did a virtual webinar as we are doing this time. The theme for this year is Together We Can Bring Our Children Home. So during this webinar, we want to understand who is a missing child. We have a common understanding. Then what are the pull and push factors for a child to go missing? What are the available legal provisions for recovery and protection of missing children? What support should be given to a recovered child as well as parents of missing children? What preventive and protective strategies should be in place to enhance protection of missing children? And what can we do better in ensuring that our children are safe? And how can we equip our children with the necessary skills to use when they go missing? With me, I have a panel of experts in child protection who will be speaking to us on the issue of missing children. To start us off, we will have a senior director, Mr. Noah Sanganyi, a director in the Department of Children's Services. Mr. Sanganyi is a child protection specialist with over 31 years experience in that field. Is, as I've said, is a director in the Department of Children's Services under the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. He's pursuing a PhD in sociology at Mount Kenya University, and currently is a holder of Master of Arts in Sociology from the University of Nairobi. He has attended many programmatic and management courses in the country and abroad, including Management of Child Development course at the Institute of Child and Health in India, Treatment of Juvenile Delinquent System course by JICA at UNAFEI. UNAFEI is United Nations Far East Institute in Tokyo, Japan. Policy Advocacy course by MS Training Center for Development Cooperation in Arusha, Tanzania. Training on improving and assuring quality services for orphans and vulnerable children, also in Tanzania. He specializes in offering psychosocial support to orphans and vulnerable children, development of work plans and national plans, and national policy on orphans and vulnerable children. Noah is also an expert in the treatment of juvenile delinquency, children and youth at risk, and an expert in management of national cash transfer program for orphans and vulnerable children. Noah is an alternate board member of the National Crime Research Center and the National Council for Children's Services, representing the Principal Secretary, Minister of Labor and Social Protection. He is also the Secretary to the National Council for Administration of Justice, Special Task Force on Children Matters. I hereby now invite Mr. Noah Sanganyi to make the opening remarks and also speak to us about the missing child, who is a missing child, give us the statistics for the year 2020, the push and pull factors, and any other information that he wishes to share with us. Karibu sana, Mr. Sanganyi. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Goretti, I hope I'm loud and clear. Can you hear me, Mary Goretti?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you very much. Today I'm having two presentations. The one in the program, and I've been delegated by the Secretary Children Affairs, Mr. Shem Nyakuti, to represent him in this forum. And I'm advised that I need to start with this speech because he's not around. Then I'm able now to go to the main notes, which I have a PowerPoint presentation. So you will allow me to read the speech first, and then we project my presentation. And this is a speech by Chair Munyakuti, Secretary, Children Affairs, during the International Missing Children's Day. Today, 2021. Representatives from partners, government ministries, departments, and staff of the ministry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to join the world in commemorating the International Missing Children Day. In Kenya, a day does not pass before we hear or read in the media cases of missing children. The impact goes wider than just the missing child. Families are left behind, often in limbo, not knowing the whereabouts or welfare of their loved ones. The theme for this year is Together We Can Bring Back Our Missing Children Home. The theme calls for all of us to work together in bringing the missing children back home. Kenya has demonstrated its high-level commitment in matters of missing children. The Department of Children Services coordinates and supervises services aimed at promoting and protecting the well-being of children and their families. A technical working group spearheaded by the Department of Children Services has been working to develop a model framework on standard procedures for missing children. The inaugural technical working group was held on 3rd November 2017. And membership currently is composed of 16 organizations, both state and non-state actors. The technical working group organized for the commemoration of the International Day for the Missing Children in 2019. This has already been alluded to by Madam Goretti. It is important to note that different stakeholders are doing what they can to respond to incidences of missing children. For instance, Missing Child Kenya runs an online portal to boost such efforts. As quickly as possible, the Children's Court routinely hold press conferences for lost children. The Department of Children Services handles such cases by referring them to police, court, or charitable children institutions. In order to effectively prevent and reduce the number of children going missing, as stakeholders in child protection, we need to understand the picture and the context of missing child and whether there are any particular locations or venues which are particularly high risk and where children are regularly going missing. That is, age categories prone to going missing, and if there are indicators of missing as a result of child trafficking. During this International Missing Children's Day, we are encouraging a holistic approach encompassing prevention, protection, education, and support to missing children and their families. We are in the process of finalizing the missing children guidelines so as to achieve a coordinated national policy response across various government departments and civil society organizations. Families and communities need to be confident that when children go missing, those responsible for finding them will work to reduce the likelihood that they will come to harm while away, and that all organizations will work together to resolve cases of missing children as quickly as possible, whereas providing the families of missing children with the support that they need. In conclusion, this is of essence in missing children cases. In conclusion, time is of essence in missing children cases. There is therefore an urgent need for all the stakeholders to work together in synergy and to adequately respond to incidences of missing children in a systematic way. Every child deserves a safe childhood. That is the speech by our chief guest, Mr. Shem Nyakubi, who is not with us, but he had to attend to one of the officers' funeral in Nyamira. So he has given us a go ahead to now proceed with this important activity for the day. So Jennifer, maybe you can now present and project the PowerPoint so that I can now proceed. Yeah, today, our moderator has already given the background of this issue. But before I go into the details, I want to confirm that as a department, for a long time, we have had this issue of missing child in our agenda. But as time went by, we tried to get from the various stakeholders, how do we move forward as a department? And this started in the children's court. When I assigned one of my officers, Esther Mogure, to work on this issue from the children's court, because she used to work in the children's court. And I'm sure you saw some time ago, children being paraded in the children's court. And then we announced the missing children. And from those press conferences or the photographs that we used to have, a few of the parents will come forward. So, but the majority of the children will still go back to our children's remand home, children's home in Kapete. This bothered the department. Until now, we started having a clear way of forward. How do we move as a department together with stakeholders? This has come a long way, and we are now in the process, as the Secretary of Children Affairs has said, to bring together now all the stakeholders. So mine will be some few slides which will provoke discussion from the participants. And participants in the room, I can see there are people who are experts in this particular area. They are practitioners. And as a department, we would like to hear from you, what is the best way forward? Yeah. But from the word go, we as a department have a whole section which we have dedicated to one of the areas is the missing children. And that is why you are seeing Esther Mugure on the forefront, because she's the one, she's our contact person on behalf of the department in this particular area. So in terms of our introduction, all children deserve safe childhood in families. It is a loaded statement, but the department, having come up with this statement, it means we as a department are encouraging the children, for children to live in a happy life, then they need to live within a safe environment. And that safe environment is only in the family. However, many children whereabouts is unknown. It is true, this missing child, sometimes it is not known where they are. We see all the time in the newspapers, but they are not near their families. The next slide, please. Most legal instruments define a child, define who a child is, most instruments. However, there is no regional or national consensus how to define a missing child and how to investigate cases involving missing children. This is something which has been bothering us as a department. But of late, although it is not law, we tried as much as possible as a department to bring in the issue of missing children into the legal framework. That is the Children's Bill 2020. And we have, if I could share briefly what it is in the Children's Bill, the way we brought it in the Children's Bill is that one of the sections in 146C, it states that a child in need of care and protection who is lost and found and whose parent or guardian cannot be found. This is the closest we could bring in the issue of missing child. But now that the bill has been approved by cabinet and it's on its way to parliament, this will be actually the definition of who a missing child is. So we have tried to bring out a legal perspective of what a child is. And remember that this Children's Bill, it's only not the work of the Children's Department, but it's stakeholders in Kenya. It went through a whole process. Those of you who have been near that bill, it is almost 15 years down the line, trying to bring it up, bringing in emerging issues into this. And one of those emerging issues was the missing child. Lack of harmonized definition of the term missing child makes it difficult to know the full extent of the problem and determine how best to protect children from going missing. It is very true. It's a loaded statement, but it has a lot of meaning in the terms that if we don't have an harmonized definition, then this missing child will actually miss on the way. Next slide. Next slide. Hello. Okay. Who is a missing child? The European Union defines a missing child as anyone younger than 18 years, whose whereabouts are unknown to his or her custodial parents, guardians, or responsible party. This is the way the European Union defines it. And for us, we try to bring in this definition in what I've just explained to you according to our constitution. So it is closer to this. Missing children include a wide range of situations that span from runaways to abduction by parents or by third parties, and to missing unaccompanied migrant children and lost children. This is a study was done in 2013. And Mary Mogaka is here, is in charge of the section we call counter-trafficking in persons. This is where we have many unaccompanied migrant children. So that is one of the categories of a missing child. The next slide, please. We have tried from our department through the Child Protection Information Management System, and I hope that you understand that this is one of the key areas, focus of the department, that we have tried to bring together stakeholders to key in the various categories of children. And from our CPMS portal, then we have these statistics which I want to share with you from January 2020 to December 2020. And we have categorized them in various areas. You can see abduction. There are 1389. Children on the streets, internally displaced children, missing child, lost and found, parental child abduction, I already explained about it before, refugee children, trafficked child, and lawful confinement. So according to our Child Protection Information System, this is the way, this is the closest we can find a missing child data. And this is the information that we used for your information to make a presentation to the African Charter and Welfare of the Child report last year, so that this is information live from the field, from our children officers. And we are encouraging at this particular moment that stakeholders take advantage of this child protection information system to key in this information so that we have now a national data on missing children. This child protection information management system has already been launched by our CS, and there is a whole report to that for the last 3 years. Next slide. Our statistics from Missing Child Kenya. This is one of our partners who has teamed up with us in bringing out the silent issues of missing children in Kenya. This is from their data which indicates how many children that they have handled, how many they have reunited, how many have died. And of course, in the circumstance, there are many cases which are undocumented and therefore unaccounted for. So according to our moderator today, she explained that we want to bring out some of the issues which are there in this missing child issue, so that as a country, we are now able to team together and document these cases from one particular area. And this is why we are bringing in the issue of child information management system. The next slide, please. Push and pull factors. Our moderator has said that we will try to, as much as possible, to give information on the push and pull factors. And there are various areas, various regions. Some of them are intentional, some of them are unintentional. Family dissatisfaction, conflict. It is true when families are not functional, then children are the greatest abusers. And this is where now a child will disappear from home and loiter all around. Household poverty is true. This is a difficult moment where families are not able to provide for their basic needs, and you'll find children disappearing from home to go and make a living elsewhere. Issues associated with poverty and peer pressure. When children are young, they are easily influenced and you find them disappearing from home. Mental issues, very common of late. Our national television stations are hearing issues on mental health, how it has affected families and even children. Child abuse and neglect. Recently launched Violence Against Children, a report as a ministry. And in that report, there are detailed reports, detailed analysis of how child abuse and neglect is contributing a lot to the issue of missing children. There are children who are not able to cope with pressure, issues relating to drug and alcohol problems. The last one is actually very critical these days because many children are being involved in drug and alcohol problems, and this has enabled them to be really dysfunctional, and you'll find them disappearing from home for long periods of time. Next slide. Which are the risks involved? A child who goes missing, just one face, same immediate risks as those who go missing on a regular basis. The bottom line is, when a child has gone missing, this child is at a higher risk of violence, death, victimization, sexual exploitation, and involvement in crime. And this you have already seen this happening in the country. Next slide, please. In conclusion, we are saying that families need to be confident that when children go missing, those responsible for finding them will work together in the prompt recovery and reintegration. We are emphasizing here reintegration so that children grow within their families. Each missing episode for any individual child requires consistently high level of response. We want to emphasize here that when a child is missing, that is a human being, and we need to respond as quickly as possible. As we mark this particular day, let's work together to bring back our missing children back home. What we want to emphasize from the department is that we have provided this platform so that our stakeholders, now we want to look at this issue from both sides, from the negative, from the positive side, so that as a country now, we want to move forward. As a department, as already mentioned by our Secretary, Children Affairs, we want to come up with a draft guideline. This draft guideline, then based on our officers on the ground, and we have selectively picked the officers where we have cases from the CPMS on missing children, so that they bring in their experiences into the workshop, come up with a draft, a guideline, which now we will be able to bring together to the wider stakeholders outside the department, so that you now give us input, and we have all these issues discussed. At the end of the day, we want a country guideline on missing children. Thank you very much, Madam Mogaka, for being our moderator for the morning. And we want to wish you well. Staying in until we close this session because it is critical. And I will now allow Madam Mirigoretti to move to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Sanganyi. Thank you for bringing to life the issues that we are dealing with by defining for us who a missing child is. And we've seen the categories of children who can be considered to be missing are many. And you've also taken us through the push and pull factors, what we should be working on so that our children do not leave their homes. We will be having a question and answer session after all the presentations, so please note down the issues, and I request the speakers to remain on the call so that they can take part in that session when we get there. So allow me to quickly move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Vivian Mangoli. Vivian Mangoli is also a child protection specialist with considerable expertise in child emergency response and interventions. She has over 12 years of professional experience in child rights protection, programming and advocacy, most of it in senior administrative capacity with the Department of Children's Services in Kenya. Vivian is extremely knowledgeable in matters children and has been involved in the formulation and implementation of children policies and plans. She is currently the lead technical officer on ending violence against children in Kenya at the Department of Children's Services. Vivian has a passion for child protection that springs from the deep sense of purpose she has established in her vocation, primarily motivated by an ingrained belief in the inherent mobility and duty domiciled in children, believing that the former provides guidance to the latter's unstoppable force for maximum results. She believes in working for children and with children. Vivian will speak to us about the role of the Department of Children's Services and other actors in addressing the issues of missing children. Vivian, welcome. Take the next 10 to 15 minutes because we are short of time. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Madam Goretti. I will take us through the role of the Department of Children's Services and other actors in addressing issues of missing children. So the Department of Children's Services draws their mandate from Section 38(1) of the Children Act, which is to safeguard the welfare of all children in Kenya and promote their welfare. It is important to note that in addressing issues of children, of missing children, this involves different actors, both state and non-state actors. We acknowledge that as a department, we cannot address these issues in isolation. So effective intervention measures can only be achieved in a coordinated multi-sectoral risk-based response to cases of missing children. And in categorizing our role, I can categorize them in three broad areas to quickly go through. We have a preventive role, we have a responsive role, and we have a provision role. So in talking about prevention or preventive measures, these are the measures that aim at reducing the number of children who go missing by employing effective preventive strategies and education, as well as early intervention in cases, early intervention in local cases and repeat cases. So this helps to reduce the vulnerability and likelihood of vulnerable children going missing. And how do we do this? We do this by capacity building of duty bearers. Duty bearers are the social workforce, children officers. I'm talking about the police. I'm talking about the education office, the education sector. And all these are trained. For example, the police, you can train the police to identify the risks that may lead to a child going missing or suffering harm, to help manage the consequences of a child going missing. And even the duty bearers, just to build their capacity on reporting and timing, because issues of missing children, we focus a lot on time. Time is of essence. So capacity building is one of the actions that we undertake, or the roles that we have. We also do a lot of community awareness, because the primary responsibility of protecting a child lies with the parent or caregivers. And we target communities in enhancing protection of these children through the existing community structures, that is community policing structures, the Nyumba Kumi structures, child protection teams on the ground. And a lot of community awareness is happening through our sub-county children officers and offices, and as well as partners on the ground. The education sector also can deliver preventive messages to school, and we also deliver preventive messages directly to children through child participation forums that we have, existing structures that are there. Children assemblies, for example, where we tell children to be proactive in protecting themselves, or where to go in terms of reporting in the event of any violence, or in the event of they go missing. The second, at the national level, the department has several plans that they have put in place, which provide plans and policies that provide a conducive environment for intervention measures to be undertaken. And just to mention a few, right now, we are developing a framework for missing children in Kenya, which will be a national operation operational strategy, providing guidelines on how to handle children who are missing. And we also have a National Prevention and Response Plan 2019-2022 that has several strategic actions that also aim at reducing the prevalence of violence against children. We have the case management guidelines that aid in handling cases of missing children as well. And our data is collected through the CPMIS, just as the director has mentioned. We equally have the National Plan of Action for to prevent and stop sexual exploitation of children and adolescents. National Plan of Action Against Sexual Exploitation of Children in Kenya. And this basically helps us address the links between missing children and child exploitation, as well as child trafficking. So moving forward on the protection aspect, which I also referred to as response, protection as a role, we help aim at reducing the risk of harm to those children who go missing. And this is done in a coordinated approach because it involves different actors again, like I said. It involves reporting. When a child goes missing, members of the public or the community can choose to report to different actors. Some of the community members go to the children offices, some of them go to the police, others are encouraged to go to the area local chief. So whichever government structures that are near the community members are allowed to go report. And of course, they will be referred to the police station because the police have the mandate to investigate cases of missing children. So once you are at the police, we can also call 116, which is our national helpline. And children and members of the public are all encouraged to call depending on the urgency of the matter. This just ensures that we work together to find the child and to close cases as quickly as possible at both local and the national level. So I just wanted to outline when you go report about a missing child, what maybe a member of the public is required to provide is name of the child, the date of birth of the child, description, and a recent photograph of the child, and the details of where and when the child was last seen, who they were with, the details of the family and friends and any associates. So information gathering is done at the reporting stage. Then of course the police will investigate depending on the risk. There will be risk assessment and the police will investigate. So the risk assessment should be robust and it should provide clear referral and linkages on where to take or how agencies should share this information, including the media. We have collaborative partners that focus on sharing information of missing children, like for example, Missing Child Kenya, who does a lot of sharing of missing children. The police equally share information on missing children. So we have different platforms. And we also conduct placement as a department within the government institutions and also in charitable children institutions, of course, with the help of, in collaboration with judiciary through care orders. That is for the children that we have found and maybe we have not traced the parents. Yes, that happens as well. So the other broad category role is on provision. And this, when I talk about provision, I basically mean that we aim at providing missing children and their families with support and guidance by prompt referral and ensuring that the children and their caregivers understand how and where to access help and support to minimize anxiety and distress, because we all know how it feels when you lose or when your child goes missing. And we know that some of these cases turn fatal. So again, time is of the essence. So our role in reassure families that everything is being done to find their loved ones. And this information is also relayed to families in a timely manner regarding the progress of their case. The police have the mandate to do this. And also counseling services. Counseling services pre and post to, again, reduce anxiety and distress. And like I said, provision in terms of placement when the children are placed within government institutions or charitable children institutions, they're provided for with food, shelter, clothing, and counseling as well. So basically, that is my presentation. Thank you, Madam Goretti.
Thank you very much, Vivian, for that, at least telling us the role of the children officers and the various agencies, government and non-state actors in preventing children from going missing and response when children go missing in the unfortunate event. We are now moving to our next speaker, who is Penina Kangithia. Penina Kangithia is an assistant director for Children's Services with 14 years experience in child protection and counseling. She holds a master's degree in counseling psychology. Currently, she is the head of Westlands Sub-County Children Office. And she will be speaking to us about psychosocial support for parents and caregivers of missing children and for the recovered children, and also life skills and strategies for parents, caregivers, and children to prevent incidences of children going missing. Welcome, Penina.
Thank you very much, Madam Goretti. Good morning, our participants who are listening to us all over the country. This morning, I'm going to talk very briefly on the psychosocial support that we give to the children, their families, the children who go missing, and of course, their families they come from. Well, our theme is bringing together, you can bring children home. And I think we need to ask ourselves, in what state do we bring these children home? We need to consider that these children need to go back home healthy, psychologically, and physically. When we imagine of a child who found herself or himself away from the loving care of their parents or caregivers or whoever they live with, or from their familiar environment, we can agree together that this is a situation which causes a lot of stress to this kind of a child. And this stress can have both short and long-term effects if not well dealt with. When children come to us, or even families when they come to report to us, you realize that they are displaying signs of stress. And it is important as child protection practitioners to be able to identify these signs of stress so that we can be able to assist them well, and of course, understand them and be able to work with them. Stress simply means the body's reaction to anything out of the ordinary. And actually, it is directly linked to our survival tactics or instincts. And it is also referred to as the flight or fight response to situations that appear threatening to our lives. So when these children find themselves in situations that are outside the ordinary, or even when these parents learn that one of their own is not with them, they may display some symptoms that really needs to be dealt with before they graduate to something more serious. What are the short-term effects or symptoms of a stressed child or family member? One, you find that these children or these parents or the caregivers, they'll display tension headaches. Yeah, they will display sometimes chest pains. They may display racing heartbeats. They may come to us looking very, very tired, fatigued. They may display sweating, shortness of breath, loss of memory, concentration, yeah? And if we don't understand these children or these parents, sometimes we may mishandle them. For example, a child has come and you are asking him or her, what's your name? And the child gives you just one name. My name is Dan or Ben. And it's like, what's the other name? If you don't understand this child, you may start being very, very pushy, which may worsen the situation of this child. Kindly understand, the child can even forget the name. Kindly understand, even the parent can forget even the name of the high level of stress. And therefore, as you handle them, ask yourself, am group that you have put in. In these groups, they are able to play games, they are able to involve themselves in activities that helps to relieve the stress. The other principle that we have to have in mind as we handle them is the principle of creating self-efficacy. This simply means belief in one's ability to act in a way to improve one's situation. When children find themselves in an unfamiliar situation, surrounded by many unknown people, or people who are threatening their lives, there is the feeling of hopelessness. And it's like they are just there to rely on other people for their safety. So you as a child protection practitioner, when you come in contact with this kind of a child or a family, try to help them realize that they still have the ability to help resolve the problem that they are in. For example, a child can be there and it's like, do you know where do you remember your home? And the child is like, yeah, I know, it's Huruma. All right. You can applaud the child that the child remembers that the home is in Huruma. The child feels, that means there's something that I can be able to do to help myself out of this situation. So self-efficacy, promoting self-efficacy of the child and the family is very important, because it helps them to know that they are not totally depending on strangers or other people to resolve the problem that they are in. Finally, there is the need for you to promote hope. Yes, that it is going to be well with them. The situation is bad, but all will be well. On the line of psychosocial support, there is one thing that we normally do as child protection practitioners, something we call psychological first aid. That is the first kind of a psychosocial support we offer, or we should offer, when we come in contact with children who are missing or even their families. Now, what is it? What is psychological first aid? It simply means humane, practical support that you give to a child or a family who is in distress. Therefore, what does it entail? It simply entails things like, one, assessing and addressing the concerns that are being raised by the child or the family. It entails addressing the basic needs of the child, the very basic needs, which includes giving a glass of water, giving something to eat, because these children may have gone for long hours without anything to eat, may have gone for long hours without even getting water to drink. So in your psychological first aid, you endeavor or you try to provide these basic needs. You may also realize that this child is in pain. Yeah, as we said, stress can cause even physical pain. If you realize that this child is in some kind of a pain, psychological first aid means you address that pain. Well, you may not have the capacity to address the pain yourself, but you can connect the child or the family with the right agencies or the right people to provide that kind of a service to reduce that pain. Psychological first aid also includes things like listening to what the child is saying or the family is saying. Remember, it does not include pressurizing the child to give information. Remember, stress may have caused loss of memory. So when you're pushing this child, where you send your home is where you send who is your mother, you confuse the child even the more. So you simply get the information, just as my colleague Vivian has said, the importance of collecting information. So in psychological first aid, you listen and get the information. Of course, you can ask very, very gently for a clarification. For example, the child may say, I come from Kangemi. Then you ask, excuse me, Kangemi? And the child says, Kangema. And it's like, is it Kangemi or Kangema? So you can clarify very, very gently. And if you find the child again cannot tell, you can put that question aside, then you come to it later. So listening to what the child or the family is saying without pressurizing. It also entails comforting the people to feel calm. Comforting can mean or may include even providing a comfortable seat to sit on, a comfortable place to relax even before the child or even the family starting giving the information. Just that comfort may be very, very crucial for this child at this particular time. Psychological first aid also entails protecting the child from further harm. For example, if this child was kidnapped and maybe he or she has gone through all sorts of threats and all that, when the child comes to us as child protection practitioners, it is upon ourselves to create that feeling of, I will not get hurt anymore. That feeling of, yes, I think I am safe. It is also important in psychological first aid to connect the child with information or the family. You may not have all the information with you, but you can refer the family or even the child to a place where they can get further information which can help resolve the issues at hand. And I want to believe if we are able to apply those simple principles of psychosocial support, we shall be able to bring these children home in good health. We shall be able to bring them home without having triggered other problems that were not there before the child got lost. Thank you. That's my simple presentation.
Thank you so much, Penina. That was awesome. She has told us to remember that we need to bring back the children home physically and psychologically healthy. So, as I said earlier, we will be having a session for questions and answers and comments. I'm already seeing some questions on the question and answer chat. So maybe the speakers can be looking at that and get ready when we get to that session so that they can respond. Allow me now to move to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Madam Mercy Otieno. Mercy Otieno has a background in counseling psychology, and she is the manager outreach care at Heart Kenya. Heart Kenya deals with issues of protection and care of victims of trafficking. Welcome, Mercy.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, before Mercy goes ahead, Mercy will be speaking to us about emerging issues affecting missing children, including issues of trafficking in persons, COVID-19 pandemic, and institutionalization. Welcome, Mercy.
Thank you so much, Madam Mary Goretti. Allow me to share my screen as I present. Just a minute. Okay. Cynthia. Okay. So thank you very much. So my name is Mercy Otieno, as you've heard. I come from, I work with Heart Kenya, which is awareness against human trafficking. And as Madam Penina has mentioned, we work with victims of human trafficking, where we provide various support to the victims of human trafficking. And we also have various programs that aid in combating human trafficking in Kenya and East Africa. So today I am here to talk about emerging issues affecting missing children. So we are going to look into issues of COVID-19 and trafficking, child trafficking, and institutionalization of children. So the emerging issues around missing children, we have that when children go missing, they are exposed to high-risk activities, and this could be the threats of exposure to high-risk activities. That means because they are not protected, then they are vulnerable to various activities that we will talk about as we proceed with this presentation. So then, as our first presenter had mentioned, Mr. Sangani, that due to the lack of harmonized global strategy aimed at addressing the missing children and child abduction, so some of these things, because they're lacking, sometimes it affects the implementation of ensuring that missing children are taken care of, and that these activities are combated in a harmonized way. And then he also mentioned that the lack of international legal instruments to define missing children. That means due to the lack of definition, then it really becomes a little bit difficult to implementing these activities. And then we have few countries that have legislation specific to missing children and the strategies to combat the same. Then we have issues of, let me just minimize this. So then we have issues like incorrect data, deletion of records that causes problems when collecting data. And we all know that even as we implement, we need to have data for us to effectively implement projects that are able to combat such issues of like missing children. So when we have unreliable data, then programming really becomes a little bit difficult. And then we are seeing issues whereby institutionalization of children through various research, it is proving that when we institutionalize children, we have more negative impact than positive impact. So those are issues around missing children, because then that means when we have missing children, when the second speaker was talking about having to find a shelter for them or a CCI for them, and if they are not found in time, then they will stay there for longer periods of time without nothing much happening to them. And then there is an effect when children are institutionalized for long, because then they have issues like they have developmental challenges. The second issue is trafficking. Child trafficking is another high-risk activity that children encounter while missing. As I had mentioned earlier, because these children are unprotected, then they are predisposed to traffickers, who then will take them for various purposes, could be adoption, could be slavery, forced labor, organ transplant trade, and sexual exploitation. So the main causes of trafficking in children are not limited to poverty, humanitarian crisis, and lack of education. So when in terms of humanitarian crisis, for example, when there's war, a lot of children are left unaccompanied by caregivers. So then these children are left to the risk of being trafficked by people who have various reasons of why they want to traffic them. And then poverty, when this poverty makes children lack the basic needs that they need for proper growth. So when these children do not have food, when they do not have shelter, when they do not have clothing, when they cannot attend school, they are left maybe in open streets or even unattended for, because then their parents are not with them all the time. It means these parents have to go and find job. The children are left at home without supervision. So then they become highly vulnerable to trafficking. And also issues where some people will employ children or will get children into child labor, which in turn sometimes turns into child trafficking. And not all child labor is child trafficking. So I would like to assume that all of us were able, maybe a majority of us were able to see the BBC Africa Eye, where they were conducting an expose. They had an expose on illegal child trafficking that saw us see how the theft of babies would occur, even in the private clinics and all that. So these children were being taken for either adoption, or we never know what other activities they were being involved in. So Mariana Munyendo, founder of Missing Children Kenya, points out that child trafficking is a huge issue in the country, and it remains underreported and is yet to be prioritized in action response plans for social welfare. Yeah, and even as our first presenter was presenting, you could see, like, in the year 2020, between January and December, we had 103 cases of child trafficking. So issues that make child trafficking really underreported is because sometimes majority of people do not understand what child trafficking is or what trafficking is in definition. So what that means. So when sometimes we report cases and maybe child labor, yet it's a case of child trafficking. Now, because of lack of people understanding this, it means a lot of the cases that are under trafficking of children go unreported. Then this affects the available data around child trafficking. Another issue is the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic heightened the risk of missing children to trafficking and sexual exploitation. This is because, again, when you look at COVID-19, a lot of things happened in terms of, there was a lot of social issues, like schools were closed. So parents were home, children were also home. Some of them are not really engaged in constructive activities. Then this left them predisposed to trafficking, to traffickers. This could have been through the online platforms, could be also during physical interactions. So the COVID-19 really heightened the situation of trafficking in children, and also in terms of just children going missing, not because they have been trafficked, but just because children have gone missing. And it's because of the whole issue that came around with COVID-19, where a lot of cases around gender-based violence were reported. And part of the things that push and pull factors that contribute to missing children is dysfunctional families. So where there is GBV, where the family is in constant conflicts, children might flee their homes because they are trying to run away from that toxic environment. So such issues really heightened issues of missing children. And then UNODC Executive Director mentioned that how traffickers engage children through online enticement. Yeah, because a lot of children right now, they have access to online platforms, and we, as parents, we are not able to monitor, or caregivers, we are not able to monitor what our children are doing online. So then they fall prey to traffickers who are online, and then all of a sudden children go missing. We were aware of the documentary that was conducted by Citizen TV of the young girls who went missing during last year because of the online engagement that was unsupervised. So then there are instances where people have been able to see predators openly discussing the pandemic as an opportunity to entice unsupervised children into producing sexually explicit materials. Then it just goes back to the issue of children not being monitored. And then these predators openly target these children online because it becomes easier to control them while no one is supervising them. So COVID-19, still on COVID-19 pandemic, we have cases where children have run away out of frustration with restrictions having been reported. This just goes back to issues of family dysfunctions and how the COVID-19 really came and impacted the social systems around people and their families and their communities. And then children, then with the presence of the of parents home, which was not something maybe children were used to, children feel frustrated and some of them run away. Then they have to be reported missing because we don't know where they are. So because of this, children end up in a sexual exploitation situation. Issues around institutionalization of children. By 2009, about 2 to 8 million missing children were living in institutions. And this is because they were not able, people are not able to trace their families or their caregivers. So these children are left in institutions. And then, so some of the issues that come around institutionalization of children is the children's needs are not able to be catered for, because we all know that children would love to grow in an environment that is stable. So when this is not there, when this is not present, when the family environment is not present, children are left to suffer from emotional issues, physical and intellectual and sexual development challenges. Because some issues around institutionalization of children are these are organizations where they employ people, and sometimes maybe a social worker might leave and the children are already used to this person. Then when they leave, that causes a disruption in the development of this child. There are a lot of issues that go around the institutionalization of children, issues like sometimes there's issues of child abuse within the institutions. Then this really affects the child. When the children are in high number, it means that every child will not get the attention that they deserve. Then this also impacts in their whole development. Because children need, for children to develop, there has to be a holistic approach into how we care about these children. Because of institutionalization of children, it prevents children realizations of potential, and then it severely limits their life chances when they're not able to develop fully. And then for the migrant children, they are sometimes placed in reception centers for a long period of time. When they are placed in reception centers, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with this, because you never know when you will be able to maybe be moved to a family or be reunited with your family. So this long period of waiting time really interferes with the child's psychological and social development, which is not really something that is advised when dealing with children. As I had mentioned, children prefer stability. Children prefer a place where they know there's reliability. So when this is not there and they're constantly in anxiety situations, children then are left to have developmental issues. Then children, when they are left in these reception centers, some of them may be segregated and they may enter residential care with no specific facilities for quality individualized care needed. Yeah, because of also the large numbers and maybe the limitations in terms of resources, children might not really be able to access the quality individualized care that they need. So sometimes children are given generalized care, yet every child is unique. Every child has a different way of coping. Some children are highly need more attention than others. Others need more guidance. So when they're generalized, it affects how these children will then turn out as they develop. Some fail to get placements in shelters and sleep on rough streets, maximizing the exposure and risk. When children go missing, not all of them will be able to get shelters where they can be put, as people wait to find their parents or their caregivers. So then these children, what happens to them is they sleep in the streets or they end up becoming street children. And then this then heightens their risk of being trafficked for various reasons, being used for child labor and all that. So because then these children who are outside in the streets, what happens to them is that they fall outside the protection system because there's no one to take care of them. They're alone in the streets. So then the cycle sadly repeats itself, because maybe if this is a girl, they might get pregnant while in the streets. They will give birth to children while they're in the streets. Then this becomes a cycle that continues with no end. So research demonstrates that living in institutions can cause significant lifelong harm to children's physical and psychological development. So this I had mentioned based on various reasons that surround the institutions. So then children have developmental issues, which then affects how they will become functional adults when they grow up. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. And thank you for reminding us of what COVID-19 pandemic has done to us in terms of increase in risk to missing children and their risk to trafficking and to sexual exploitation. Thank you also for reminding us that we are not just dealing with the Kenyan children, we are also looking at the migrant children, and they are also our mandate. Thank you, Mercy. Now we are at the point where we are going to respond to the questions that have been raised. And let me look at the chat. There are questions that are specific to certain speakers, and others are general questions. Question number 1 is from Osewe. He wants to know whether comparing 2020 and 2019, whether the numbers have gone up or down. Mr. Sanganyi, if you are still on the call, I'll ask you to take that. Issues of cultic practices and illegal adoption, as can that be considered as a push and pull when it comes to infants? Mr. Sanganyi, what is the process of nominating children to formulate the Children Assembly? How long do they serve? Vivian, you will take that. Then how do we get police to investigate and resolve cases of abandoned children? Since some of these children were placed for adoption, there are many question marks on the information provided. Vivian, we will also look at that. Penina, there's a question for you on training for persons who handle missing children, and reconciliation of data from the police. How do we ensure that the police share the data that they have on missing and found children, because all the reports are made to them? And is there a state database for reported cases accessible to all juvenile justice agencies? So I think we deal with those ones first before we proceed. Mr. Sangani, please.
I'm trying to get the first one, first question. Just a second. Comparing 2019 and 2020, yes, it is true. The correct figure we're not able to get is right now, but we actively started keying in issues of into the CPMS in 2020. That is why I gave you the statistics for 2020, the whole of 2020. It is true that the challenges of restriction and the economic challenges are giving rise to those numbers. For number two, is there a state database system for reported cases? Yes, it is through the CPMS. We have tried to bring all data on children into one platform. And this is what now we are using as a country to report into the African Child and Welfare of the reports, or of the child reports, the UNCRC report that we are starting to develop. That is what now as a country we are banking on. And remember that this CPMS is already one of the key indicators in economic household surveys, which are being undertaken by the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. And there is a whole chapter on child protection in the economic surveys, focusing specifically on CPMS components. So this is an area that we are putting a lot of emphasis on that. The second part of this is, and can it be linked to the CPMS to see whether it can be used for matching? Yes. We don't, what we are looking at, as I gave you that table, we are looking at all the areas, possible areas which are linking to missing children. And we are encouraging the juvenile justice agencies to give us data into that. And this is where, as a National Council for Children Services, most of those agencies are members, and we reach out into them. Mogaka, those are the two that you had assigned me. Let's hear from the other officers, the other presenters. Thank you, Mogaka.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sangani. Vivian, respond to.
Is Vivian around?
Yes, I am. I'm responding to what is the process of nominating the children who formulate the Children's Assembly, and how long do they serve? The children assemblies are normally county-based. We have county-based children assemblies, and we have those who are voted to attend the national based children assembly. So from the counties, they are drawn equally from the sub-counties, and there is no discrimination whatsoever. So they are nominated from, it is comprised of all children who are in CCIs, and as well as children who are in normal homes, those who are in institutions, and also those who attend normal schools. And the nomination, I think, is done, the officer nominates, the sub-county nominates equally per sub-county to amount to, the number is 40 for the county assembly. There is a children assembly guideline, children participation guidelines that we have. And I would request the other panelists to help me in answering that question, but I know the composition is 40 members, and they are drawn from the different sub-counties in a county. And I assume that the numbers are equal from each sub-county. Yes. Madam Goretti.
Thank you, Vivian, for taking that. Penina, a few questions. You can pick all your questions.
Thank you, Madam Mary Goretti. There is this question on if there is training for the people who handle missing children. I don't think there is specific training for this kind of people, but I believe that now that we are rising to the occasion, that there is need to have people trained how to handle children who are missing. I want to believe that this is something that will be put in place sooner or later. Though I know that there are some agencies that have their psychosocial support teams who handle children who come in contact with them. For example, the UNCR, even the refugee, the organization that handle refugees, they do some training for their staff. But for us, maybe as a department, we don't have really that kind of a training. But it's something maybe we can be looked into and maybe put in place with the time. For parents, whenever the child is lost and he or she is reintegrated to the parent, there is always a referral for this family to get in touch with an organization that can offer counseling, because you realize that when a child gets lost, there are factors, maybe things to do with the parenting skills, things to do with even truancy of this child. So the officer integrating this child to the family, there is always a referral that these parents may need to seek counseling. So the parents are referred for counseling services and of course for further training on their parental skills. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Penina. Mercy, there are several questions for you. One of them is you expound on what you mean by reception center. There is also the issue of placing children in institutions who are missing. Yes, please take.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of what I mean with reception centers, yeah, this could be the statutory centers that are there, the government centers that are there, could be at the child protection unit desk. It could also be in the CCIs that are run by civil societies organizations or NGOs, but they have to be registered under the NCCS. Yeah, and then the next question was on placing children in institutions. What about it? Or how could we avoid placing children in institutions? Do you think establishing a
question? Yeah.
Do you think establishing a foster parent association is a priority that could avail ready placement into a family? I honestly think that us placing children in institutions, sometimes it's because due to lack of another alternative. Because you have a child, you do not know where their caregivers are or where they come from and where to place them. You can't leave this child in the streets. So you need to have them in the institutions. So the issue is avoiding to have them being in the institution for too long. So then that means we have to have proper mechanisms in place to help us identify and locate the caregivers of these children. Because if the mechanisms of identifying where the children are coming from is not there, then the children are left to stay longer in the institutions. About the foster care systems, it is a double-edged sword where we have benefits of utilizing the foster care systems, and then of course there's also the downside of utilizing the foster care system. So it's a double-edged sword, and I don't think there's enough research that has been done in Kenya to see if this is really a better alternative than institutionalization. So maybe if there's anyone else who has more knowledge into that, they can help me with that. But for now, I know it is two-way. It has two sides. It could be good, it could be bad. But there's no a research that has been done in Kenya to show whether the foster care system is better than the institutionalization of children.
To Mercy, as a government and working with partners, now we are changing the way we care for our children who are in need of care and protection. And we are embracing more family-based care and embracing alternatives to institutional care like foster care, adoption, kinship care. So that is the direction that we are taking. So in the near future, you will realize even missing children will be placed with the foster parents so that we avoid institutionalization, as we know that institutions are not the best places to care for our children. I see for COVID-19, Joanne made a comment that people would also fear to pick strange children during this time. So that's like a concern. Looking at the CPMS, it's clear indication that there is a lot that needs to be done. So the question is, what can be done to reduce these cases of missing children? I think the strategies are being given, but the panelists can also add to that. There's a question from Charlo. Do we have a unified system that allows adoption of children who have stayed long in institutions, for example, 5 years and are below 10 years old? I'll ask Director Sanganyi to respond to that. Could we avoid placing missing children in institutions? That one we have dealt with. The same with the next one from Charlo. How do we avoid? And what is the link between missing children and radicalization and violent extremism? Penina, you will attempt that. Evans says he's appreciating the work the department is doing. It's important to strengthen community child protection structures and activate area advisory councils and locational area advisory councils, including mainstreaming CUCs in all matters children. Thank you, Evans, for that comment. We will pick it up. Then there is Anonymous who has said child protection volunteers' involvement in child protection is vital. That one we accept. And even when adequate protection services and structures exist and operate and are operating effectively. So he has a concern, I don't know whether it's a she or a he, that there are child protection practitioners or volunteers without clear identification. Yeah, that is something that we can pick up when Timekesa is asking about data on voices of children who got lost and have been traced, on what caused their disappearance and what they think should be done to protect children from missing. So the voices of children in that. Penina, you will also take that. I think we should take those ones first, then we see.
Okay, Mogaka, I'm trying to attempt this question. Can we have a uniform system that allows adoption of children who have stayed long in institutions, e.g. 5 years, and are below 10 years old? I want to state that as government, we are trying to streamline the issues of adoption, not only on adoption, but on alternative family care, where adoption is just one of the approaches that we are using. And our moderator has already mentioned that as government, we are now moving from institutions to the community. That is the care reform program. And NCCS, as an organization, is trying to come up with a strategy on how we can move forward together as a country on that line. So this is an area which is also included in the Children's Bill 2020, where we are trying to bring in a lot of reforms on adoption. So I would like the person who has asked, I want to see the name. Mr. Charlo, to be patient a bit, because this is an area that we are trying to do a lot of reforms on. Thank you. Maybe I'll add something on Rosemary's Kabuthia's question. Whether we can establish a foster parent association, whether that is a priority. I am aware that several organizations, especially civil society organizations, who are working in the area of alternative family care are having several associations. I know there is Adoptive Parents Association. I know there are Foster Parents Associations. These are various members who have taken in children through either one of the forms of alternative family care. And you are free to join in so that it's actually a support group.
which assist these parents, these guardians who have already taken in children to know how to take care of them. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Margaret.
Thank you, Director Sanganyi. Penina? Penina, I had requested you to, your mic is off, please. Penina.
Sorry about that. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm saying I got one question, the other one I didn't get. Therefore, I'm answering the question on the link between missing children and radicalization and violent extremism. Now, a child can get missing as a result of being lured away from home by people with intentions to radicalize them. And a child can also get into radicalization after he or she goes missing. So there is a link between the two. It can be a reason for a child to leave home, or it can be a reason, it can also come as a result of the child being away from home. So they are very much linked, in my opinion. Back to you, Madam Mary.
Thank you, Penina. I'd also asked you to respond to the question by Victor that was asking what can be done to reduce these cases of missing children. I know we discussed that under the strategies. Maybe you can just remind him. And two, I want to ask participants to also look at the questions that have been answered in the question and answer, the option of answered. So you can see whether your question has been answered there because we are running short of time. So Penina, just respond to that.
Yeah, let me respond very briefly to this one. The causes of missing children, or what can cause a child to get missing, there are many of them. I remember my colleague analyzed them very well. They range from poor parenting, poverty, they go into peer pressure, drug abuse. All this can lead a child to go away from, to be found away from home. Dysfunctional families where you have parents are fighting for the custody of the children, and therefore you end up having what you are calling the parental abduction. All those are causes of a child to miss from home. I've just mentioned but a few.
Thank you, Penina. Vivian, kindly answer the question by Tim Ekesa about children voices as we...
Thank you, Madam Goretti. To answer Timothy, is there any data on voices of children who got lost and have been traced, and on what caused their disappearance and what they think should be done to protect children from missing? To answer honestly, no, because this is qualitative data, and currently the CPMIS, we are only collecting quantitative data. There is no voices on children
who have gone missing, not with the Department of Children's Services. Thank you, Madam Goriti.
Thank you. So team, that's an area that we can work together to collect the voices of children, to also help us as we come up with the national strategy for missing children. I'm seeing there is a comment from the anonymous. I don't know whether I should be reading from someone who doesn't want to be identified. And here he or she has said, Mercy, CCIs are not statutory, as you have indicated, since they are not owned by the government. Statutory institutions. There are reception centers by government, yes, and there are also reception centers, especially for migrants and for victims of trafficking that are run by non-state actors. That is the position. Joanne is congratulating the department for upping the game on tracking of missing children. For the first time, she has seen many cases of missing children raised on social media, and answers come either the same day or the next day. Thank you. And Mwambi Mongare is saying that the issue of data on missing children is a weighty one and needs to be addressed urgently. That is true. And there is power in numbers and data. Participants, kindly allow me to end this here. We were supposed to end at 12 noon. You can still continue interacting with us through our email address, and in another way, you can make calls to us. And we have that technical working committee on missing children that works on this. I've seen comments from the chat from Madam Judy, one of our directors, about media houses, especially the FM stations that have taken up issues of missing children, and they are not properly guided. So that's an issue that we should be discussing internally and at the technical working group to see how to support those FM stations. I kindly allow me to do the final wrap up. It has been a good 2 hours well spent. And I just want to pass a vote of thanks to several people. Kindly allow me to pass first to God for giving us life, health, and opportunity to participate in this forum. With COVID, it is not no longer guaranteed. I also want to thank our ministry, the Minister of Labor and Social Protection Leadership, the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Simon Chelugui, the Principal Secretary, Mr. Nelson Marwa, the Chief Administrative Secretary, Honorable Patrick Olentutu, the Secretary, Children's Services, Shem Nyakutu, all the directors of Children's Services led by Noah Sanganyi. They include Judy Ndungu, Morisuma, Jen Muyanga, Charles Ondogo, Jacinta Murgor, Josephine Oguye, Karen Ogoti, and of course myself. I also want to thank all the staff of the Department of Children's Services for being here and also for the work that they are doing in the field on missing children. I also want to thank all the speakers for today, Mr. Sanganyi, Vivian Mangoli, Benina Kanyithia, and Mercy Otieno, for sharing with us your expertise and your thoughts on the very important issue of missing children today. I also want to thank the behind the scenes team that organized this webinar. That includes Assistant Director Esther Mugure, Jennifer Kaberi of Mutoto News and the Mutoto News team, Marianne Munyendo of Missing Child Kenya, Mr. Morris Suma, who is the head of child protection section in the department where missing children are domiciled, Mongare Mwambi, who works there, all the child protection section staff, and the technical working committee on missing children that comprises of both state and non-state actors. Most of the members are in this call. I also want to thank all the participants for attending, because we could have organized this, and if you did not attend, we could not talk to ourselves. So thank you very much for attending and for raising the questions and all the comments that you made. We are going to take them on board as we work on the strategy. And as the theme has run all through, prevention is better than cure. We should impart skills to children we work with and for, and not forgetting our own children. We need to prevent them from leaving home. And when they leave, they need to have the skills on what to do in case they go missing. We always should make sure that we know where our children are. We should know their friends. We should make sure that they have our full names and our contacts, and they know where they live and the nearest physical markers. Let us work together to bring back our missing children home. Thank you very much and be blessed. Back to you, Jennifer, Mutoto News.
Thank you so much, Madam Goretti, and everybody who attended this webinar. As Madam Goretti said, we would not have been successful without you. We really do appreciate you joining us and commemorating. Please join us on Twitter, International Missing Children's Day Kenya, so that we can have this conversation that is going on across many platforms. So we want to say thank you so much and God bless you.
Thank you. We are now free to leave. We take it to the social media now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mogaka, and the rest.